Hello again, everyone. This is Ken Kibler, Director of Training and Client Business Support for eTruckBiz. We just hit the top of the hour, so I'm going to give it a minute as the attendee list continues to grow, and then we will get started with the weekly business update. So please sit tight for just about 30 seconds if you would. Alrighty, it looks like the attendee list has leveled up. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Once again, I'm Ken Kibler, Director of Training and Client Business Support for eTruckBiz. Jeff is on assignment today, so I'll be handling the duties along with the rest of the eTruckBiz staff. Today we're going to do the normal business update as well as have a message from Becca, and we'll cover some other very interesting topics, and when we get to those it's going to be about the Network 2.0. If you have any questions there, as always, please put them in the chat and we will get to those. And I will preface that the comments about the Network 2.0, we're not responsible for that content as it is coming straight from Facebook. So with that, next slide here. All right. Must inform everybody that eTruck is not endorsed by FedEx Corporation. And as I said, Becca has a very important message for us. So take it away, Miss Becca.
Thank you. So before we dive into today's weekly business review, I just wanted to share something that's been happening a lot lately, and especially over the past couple months. So a little while ago, I had a contractor call in, and it was right after they received a payroll audit notice. And what he said was, he thought this entire time he was doing everything right, but now as he's sitting through and getting all the documents ready and to be sent over and whatnot, he just felt like he was flying blind. He started panicking and thinking, kind of just then preparing for the worst. What if I don't pass this audit? What can I do? So anyway, what I learned from him is that he was paying different pay methods across all of his drivers. So that's kind of, making it a little disorganized. There were really no clean or consistent way to tie payroll back to his FedEx settlements. And then there was just a lot of manual spreadsheets that in the process, he really didn't fully trust anymore. So what I then was able to do was just show him how our admin program is designed to take the guesswork out of this. So instead of manually putting together hours and stops and routes, hoping your pay plans were lined up with FedEx expectations, and then also that worrying about what an auditor might find, we can walk through this together. And Admin is designed to standardize your payroll process. It's going to align your pay structures with FedEx requirements. And then it's also going to create a clear audit trail that makes reviews to be less stressful for you. So basically, once I was able to sit down with him. By the end of our conversation, he felt completely at ease. The best part about all of this for me anyway is I get to talk to them throughout this whole ordeal. And it's after the fact, after the audit is over, then I get to hear, I called you in a panic and you guys helped with this. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to connect with you guys and work through it together. And it just, for me anyway, it makes me happy knowing that I was able to satisfy this client. We do have the programs that is needed if you are facing a payroll audit, because I have been getting so many calls about this. I am here to help you. I am more than happy to go through that process with you, just like I have been with other contractors that are giving me a call. So what changed for this specific contractor that I'm referring to, with using that admin, he was able to have those, everything all organized and ready to go, and just take the panic out of it. We will take care of this for you, knowing that you have everything organized in your eTruck account. And especially with the Admin IQ program, you're having an ASM do everything for you, all that busy work, knowing that you're compliant, knowing that you're going to meet those FedEx requirements and so forth. So if this does sound familiar to you, or if you find yourself in a familiar situation, don't be afraid to reach out to me. Even if you have questions about it, we're here to help, and I am more than happy to answer any questions. I don't think my email is on any of this anywhere, so it's just Becca@eTruckBiz.com, and then I'm more than happy to even schedule a call and go over everything with you.
Excellent. And please understand we are here for your assistance. Take the stress of all that non-revenue producing stuff off of your plate. Let us handle that for you so you can work on the revenue producing tasks. So the volume for week 15, just a slight dip on the pickup stops, 0.6% down, but the pickup packages dropped a full percent. So, of course, what does that mean then? The delivered stops actually dropped 8.22%. The delivered packages dropped just over 7%. So, was this the result of the Easter weekend volume now going away? Probably a little bit of that. So we saw a little bit of softening in the volume. How'd we do? How'd we handle it? We did cut our routes dispatched. We cut them by 6.6%. Was that enough? Not quite enough. Our productivity dropped to 98.45 stops per dispatch, which is a 1.45% decrease. Once again, we really noticed that once we get above that 100 stops per dispatch, the profitability margins are right where the customers need them. So make the adjustments, go back and look at the historical volume, which for the most part, with a lot of our customers last week, we did run with the historical volume, but it was down from the Easter week volume. So Network 2.0 Q&A. As I said, if you have questions as we go through this, please put them in the chat box or the Q&A. We'll definitely get to it. There are some very, very good questions here. Also, if you have some input on some of these questions, please don't hesitate to put them in there. So first one was pretty solid question. It says, ground contractors, BCs, and drivers, I need some insight on 2.0. I'm an express employee that used to work at a ground station, and we are kind of in the dark. How did you prepare to start running express? Did engineers take or carve out what decides what they will take and what they will give? Are the DC express employees in your stations running ground? Are they running overflow, contingency? And how can FedEx take freight from you? So a lot rolled into one statement. There are several questions. I think the first one is there's not going to be some district engineer to set up their work areas. That's going to be on the BCs to do that. And are there dedicated couriers in express stations? Yeah, there are in some. For the most part, they're running the 1030 pickups. They're running some dangerous goods. At times, do they do ground? Only in a contingency situation. But overall, it will vary by station. They'll use couriers for medical stuff in certain stations. They'll use it for the 1030s in certain stations. I know in the Columbia, South Carolina building, they're running all the 1030s. So this will all be conveyed to you in your Network 2.0 meetings, but you will still be the ones responsible for engineering at the AOs and the BCs. Bob, do you have anything to add on that one?
Yes, I do, Ken. Thanks for asking. I just started working with a contractor yesterday. His whole CSA getting redefined, and that's July 7th that starts. And then August 1st, he starts 2.0. And he started working on it yesterday. So why wait till the very end, panic, and be in a lot of trouble? On the other hand, we've got another client that started 2.0 like a month ago, and they called me a month and 3 days prior. So I had 3 days to help get them ready. Needless to say, it's easier to get ready now. This client I started working with yesterday, he just wanted to know, okay, what do my route plans look like? Where do I need, especially with a new definition, where do I need to start as far as my new drivers going from one area to another? Plus, he's planning on losing some of those, of course. But he's like, I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to be worrying about it when it's here, because it's going to be here before I blink. And then I got peak right after that. So we started working on it yesterday. Don't wait to the last minute. We can help you out. I've already, put 3 route plans together for him. We discussed them. We said, yeah, you know what, that looks good. So, we're off and running.
Yeah, because everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different, but they do give you some lead time. 90% of the CSAs do change, so they'll let you know what's going to change. And once your CSA changes, normally it's 4 weeks before they introduce the 1030 and the noon deliveries for you. So you get a little bit of a practice routine. Another comment says, as far as I'm aware, ground absorbed 70% of express freight. The only thing express kept was the medical and time definite deliveries. Once again, that's going to be specific to a CSA, specific to a building. All will be conveyed to you in the Network 2.0 buildings. As you can see here, this guy says, now we got those too. Absolutely. There's some operations that got the hospitals, that got all the time definites that go with the hospitals. And then there's some operations and some CSAs where, no, we have express couriers that handle those. Okay, next one. Have all the Network 2.0 stations adapted to a zip code only method for contracted service areas? Or are there some stations still using more of a hard cut line method, such as CSA starts and ends at blank high or blank street, like before the whole 2.0 mess? Is anyone finding the zip code only method inefficient in that your zip codes actually intertwine with nearby other CSAs stop literally right next to each other? Okay. Under Network 2.0, the plan is that there will be no split zip codes. Carrie, you are on.
Yes, I am. That is exactly what that means. So 100% of the time, you are going to be redefined if you currently have a split zip code. There will be no split zip codes in 2.0, and I believe that's what person is trying to convey. Yes, you may be right next to someone else. You know, you're not going to get around that. I don't know what else to say except that is how they're defining or redefining the areas is by zip code.
Agree. And actually, for contractual purposes, it makes it much better. Every time we've seen variances or volume estimates off in PCATs, I would say 90% of those are caused by split zip codes within that CSA. Would you agree to that?
Yes, and the other problem that will be alleviated is people not getting paid for steps they're doing because of a split zip code. So we won't have to address that issue anymore.
Yes. So overall, it's beneficial. It doesn't mean that another CSA might be closer to a stop that is 10:30 that in the morning you might say, hey, would you be able to have your driver do that? Absolutely, that can still happen. And I think you'll see some more evolution with the dynamic FR. They may move some 10 and noon deliveries between CSAs, but right now that isn't the way it goes. It's much simpler. Have all the deliveries assigned to a zip code, and even more so, it gets more important with the on-call pickups. And quite frankly, the on-call pickups are one of the more challenging things with the Network 2.0. Bob, anything to add on that?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, this one, genuine question to the network, to the stations and drivers that have already incorporated 2.0. Have you all gotten a bump in pay at all? Originally, when the Network 2.0 came out, the contracts, there was an incentive to achieve 98.5 time definite service for the 10:30s and the noons. You had to hit that, and then you got paid if you hit that incentive. So FedEx has moved away from that, and they've incorporated those bonus rates per se into the normal contract. And there was no incentive to do the 5:30s and the 8 p.m.s, but they were just part of your contract. What they did, they added density to your contract and to the drivers. So, and I think the comment here by a driver, I think, is very positive, and I think it addresses that. It says, my contractor has been giving raises and benefits the whole time. Also shrinks routes and creates new ones when needed. We also have a daily doing your job bonus on top of the daily rate. So basically, they're getting a daily rate, and then they get a bonus for doing their job. I think we talked about bonuses last week and our thoughts behind that. Truly the best boss I've ever had. He was running routes with us during the switchover 3 years ago until his business made him too busy. Now he's got awesome managers in place that run with us. Very few in the company don't run when needed. Yeah, I think that's a key comment. When needed. If BCs are on the road or are on the road every day, you've got some other issues in your company. I'm not saying you can't be on the road with the driver. I would encourage those to be observation rides. But if you have to go on the road, you have to go on the road. And obviously it was appreciated by this driver. Yes, late dispatch, late pickups, heavy days, and all days suck. But someone needs to do it, and I like to eat a lot. Moral of the story is not all contractors demand too much from you. 2.0 only sucks if you make it sucks. So I think that's a very positive look at it, and quite frankly, it's a realistic look at it. You're going to have some stops that stink every day. You're going to have some days with late dispatches that throw a wrench into things. How can you adjust to it? Can you make money with it? And if you're struggling to adjust to it, can I document document it, and then can I bring that up at the time of my renegotiation, or can it trigger a renegotiation for me? And do you qualify for a renegotiation? Please let us know. I just worked with a guy who thought he might qualify for a renegotiation, and we looked at it, and quite frankly, he was running pretty well right along the lines of the contract. But, we did notice he might not be budgeted for enough straight trucks, so there is some stuff, some costs that might be out of line. But this is a way to take a look at, the best way to take a look at it is, how do I pay my drivers a fair wage? They're going to work a full day. Yeah, the days of full-time drivers working 5 hours, that has to end. First off, it's not sustainable for your business, and that business model isn't going to allow us to do on-call pickups at 4 p.m. if I have a driver sitting back in the building at 2. So, once again, drivers work a full-time day, they get paid a full-time wage.
Yeah, I think the big culture change is going to be with the drivers, and it's a huge culture change for a lot of drivers that are used to working 5-hour days, come back at 2 o'clock. It's not going to happen. So that is the sticking point, is full days out there, 8.5 hours at least. And in order to make it work, contractors are going to have to not let the drivers run the show, period. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, well put, Gary.
Thanks, Gary. That helps that culture out, though, because he's like, you know what? Everyone else, I need to eat. I don't know about you, but does it suck? Sure. But you'll get through it just like everything else. Go into it with conviction. It'll take a little bit of time, but we'll get there. And a year from now, it's just everyday business. You don't even think about it anymore. Just like all the other changes FedEx has had over the years. Go in there, get it done, and you'll be all good.
Excellent. So did anyone lose routes in the middle of the Express merger? If so, what happened to the drivers and the routes? I think 2 weeks ago we had a customer that had two CSAs, and the station basically eliminated one of those, correct?
Right. We don't like to see it, but it is going to happen to some contractors. FedEx is offering some kind of money for the contractors that they are taking away their CSAs, and we can't tell you how much. Everyone's different, but it's a sad day. If you expected to be in this business long term and you weren't ready to accept some type of a offer to get out of the business, then it is a shock. But that is happening. They're condensing. Everything has to be contiguous, very condensed, and you may be one of the people that, if your CSA is, let's say, relatively small, or in an area that they're going to do away with a few contractors, then yes, absolutely, it could happen. So you have to be aware of that too. And I know it's very difficult to prepare for, but maybe mentally keep that in the back of your mind that it could happen.
Yeah, it can. And I tell you, his other CSA did add a zip code. And I just talked to a guy yesterday who was running 6-7 routes. Well, he's going to end up being up to 14 or 15. So swing either way. And one of the comments here is, my contractor's losing my route. Haven't fully merged yet, but I'll be getting a new route within the next couple of months. It's really going to be up to the driver's preference within reason at some point on following their routes, if they can, or staying on and getting a new one. So for the most part, drivers tend to follow and move with the CSP, and they pick up a new route, and a month later, that route is now their route. And routes change every day anyhow. But I don't think that driver would want to work for any other CSP in the building, because that CSP has done something to differentiate himself from the other CSPs in the building and how they treat their employees. Okay. As this other one said, you make up what you lose with Express. It's all about time commitments now. Yeah, those 10:30s add density. Do they make it more difficult? Yes. Noons add density. Do they make it more difficult? Yes. Those 5 p.m.s and those 8 p.m.s, they add a lot of density in the afternoon, and then you're making it up. So as this comment says, not technically, we lost 100% of our area, but gained another area and grew by 25%. So once again, each CSA is going to be different. Each building is going to be different. FedEx, I do believe they do a very good job with their Network 2.0. They basically outline, they put together, what is that packet? 30-something pages, Carrie? Yep. And it's very transparent. It's going to tell you what your projected stops per dispatch are, how many dispatches per week. So, and doesn't mean it's accurate. You start with it. A month later, if something's inaccurate, you might qualify for a renegotiation. And FedEx is more willing to renegotiate those contracts simply because they know a lot of this stuff had assumption. Anything to add with the renegotiation potential, Carrie?
Right, you are correct in that. They are more willing to grant renegotiations with 2.0 contracts because they're still figuring it out also. And we were able to pinpoint in some of our representations of negotiations and contracts where the assumptions just couldn't be achieved by the contractor with what, so, they do listen, they take it, go back to engineering. It just, you have to be aware, you have to understand what your number of dispatches needs to be, even if it doesn't support what is in the packet that they give you. The important thing is if you're getting a whole new definition, then you may need another set of eyes on that 30-page packet to give you some idea of if it's doable or not with resources you have. It's a new, for most contractors, it will be a new territory. So it's hard to accept what they're giving you if you don't understand what is needed to run that new territory.
Exactly. So I'd encourage you, we've been doing these now for 2 years. We feel very, very experienced in the Network 2.0. We give you a detailed line item budget, and it's going to be very helpful, to that data when you ask for a renegotiation and when you're going through that negotiation. Okay. How are you guys going to run Express, especially the 10:30 a.m.s? And, we see lots of different things all over the place. APVs can be very expensive, but they do work in some situations. The majority of the people are putting the work on the work area where that package is supposed to go. A lot of them, they have the drivers run their 1030s first, and then they set up and run their routes. But that's what has seemed to work. It's the most cost effective. Do you have to balance out how many 1030 deliveries are on a work area? Absolutely. If you dispatch at 9 o'clock, and the guy doesn't get to the work area till 9:30, and he's got 15 1030s, probably not going to make it, because very unlikely that a person's going to do 15 stops per hour when you're doing business stops that are not the most optimized. So,
Ken,
go ahead.
And that's where I know I've been talking about this for 2 years now, but 3 years, that's where the dynamic anchors come in. Embrace those. They'll help you out, and it'll help spread that volume. That way you make sure you get to them. And then making sure that your people are actually delivering the route the way it's loaded, because that's the way the FRO is set up. If they want to do it however they want to do it after they get past the 10:30 noons, I guess have at it.
You guys know that UPS has been doing this for decades. All FedEx has to do is copy their methods. It's not rocket science. And once again, UPS uses APVs. They use air drivers. So you got to see what's going to work in your situation, and you want to make sure you do it profitably. And that's why these contracts do have increased revenue. Most of them have increased revenue per stop. And in the packet, it's going to tell you how many dispatches you're going to use per week. And what we do, we break down, what's going to be that revenue per stop times the number of stops per dispatch. We know what your revenue per dispatch is going to be. Now, does that fall in line with what your cost per dispatch is going to be? And those are the things that we can work on with you. And, it's all part of the process with the detailed budget that we give. Anything to add with that, with the negotiation side of it, Carrie?
Not really. Remember, most of these comments are made by drivers and not contractors, and you can really tell by this one.
Yes. And basically, the driver's doing the same, that they're working a shift and they're doing the same thing. They're delivering packages, So this is where sometimes you can get in trouble with stop pay, because with stop pay, the driver is going to want to do the straight line method. What's the most efficient? That changes with the 1030s and the noons. So, should they make less? No. Should they make the same amount? Probably. And can you afford to pay them the same amount? Very likely. Okay. So this was the last of the comments from Facebook. And you said Facebook is always enlightening, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a very crazy way. I don't see any other questions. Do we have any out there? Nothing in the chat.
I do not see any, Ken.
Okay, and nothing in the Q&A. So hopefully everybody found this information helpful. As you get closer and closer to that Network 2.0 rollout, as Bob said, start changing your culture right away. The customer that Bob was working with yesterday just got introduced to it. He signed up for the performance program because he wants to do it right and he wants his life to be less stressful. And that's great. That's why we're here to help. And changing the culture now is a lot easier than changing it when those 1030s and those things are on the truck. So we will be back here again next Tuesday. Jeff will be back from assignment. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. If you don't have any questions and we don't talk to you before next Tuesday, please have a safe and profitable week. Thank you very much.